An urgent review of safety and security at the London Stadium is underway tonight after violent protests from fans interrupted West Ham's game with Burnley at the weekend. The club may now pay for extra stewards at their next match. They may still be fined by the Premier League. But there are questions tonight about whether the ground is fit to be used for football. Our correspondent Simon Harris has the latest.
Oh, we've got a supporter on the pitch here. And Mark Noble, he's doing his utmost to get him off the pitch.
It's not how London's Olympic legacy was meant to be. This was the moment West Ham's home game on Saturday turned ugly. And it wasn't just pitch invasions. Young fans had to be shepherded to safety as angry supporters mobbed the director's box. It began to get uncomfortable for the club's owners, David Gold and David Sullivan. Eventually, they left their seats. Now the violence is raising questions about how safe the London Stadium is.
For football spectators to feel that they are not safe at a football ground is completely unacceptable. So forget about the players, forget about everything. That has to be put right.
The former London 2012 stadium has had a troubled history. The cost of converting it into West Ham's new home went massively over budget, and it's currently losing money. The stadium is owned by the Mayor's London Legacy Development Corporation, and one long-time critic believes the relationship between landlord and tenant has reached crisis point.
I think it absolutely is spectacularly bad for the future of the stadium that the most important tenant has such poor relationship with the LLDC itself. The mayor has to get between the two of them and bang their heads together. He's got to stop issuing press releases and start taking action.
As far as the fans are concerned, the stadium design is only part of the problem. West Ham's poor performance on the pitch is another source of tension.
I think a lot of people for a long time now have realised that the stadium's not fit for purpose and that it's not going to be a home unless something dramatic happens quite quickly. I think also what's infected everybody that supports West Ham is a clear lack of investment in the playing staff.
It isn't the first time the stadium has witnessed violence. Not long into West Ham's first season in 2016, bottles, seats and coins were thrown during a Chelsea match. Saturday's unrest will now be the subject of an emergency meeting likely to be held tomorrow. It'll involve representatives of the police, ambulance service, Transport for London, West Ham and the landlord. And it'll be hosted by Newham Council, the authority which grants the stadium its licence. There's now a gap of almost 3 weeks before the stadium and the players are again tested. The next home game is at the end of the month. Simon Harris, ITV News, Stratford.
Well, Simon's back here now. So this emergency meeting tomorrow, but what is at stake for West Ham?
Well, Lucrezia, there's been no shortage of public statements about what happened. City Hall said the disturbances were disgraceful. Newham Council said it was extremely concerned. The mayor, who's speaking at a conference in Texas, wants a meeting with West Ham's boss, Baroness Brady. The club said it was committed to decisive action. But the focus now is very much on tomorrow's meeting and what the separate investigations by the police, the club and the landlords have established. Stewarding is very much going to be high on the agenda. Where were the stewards when it all kicked off? I'm told that there are usually between 850 and 900 on duty in the park and in the stadium during a home game. Is that enough? Should there be more? Remember, of course, in the past, every time more stewards have been hired, it's been the taxpayers who've had to pick up the bill thanks to West Ham's generous lease. But ultimately, what Newham Council will have to consider as the licensing authority possibly is whether that stadium in its current form is fit for purpose.
Indeed, Simon Harris, thank you. Now, the expulsion of 23 Russian diplomats has shone a light on the scale of Russian spy activity in the capital. Today, one Russian dissident told ITV London how, despite moving thousands of miles from Moscow, he and others like him are being watched as closely here as they were there. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has more.
When Yevgeny Chichvarkin moves among the display shelves in his upmarket Mayfair wine shop, he has every reason to wonder who's watching him. Mr. Chichvarkin is a wealthy business tycoon who backs Russia's banned opposition leader. He's convinced a group of men he confronted outside his home were Russian agents, monitoring his movements while chewing on their favourite snack.
I wanted to see the faces and they disappeared, but they left sunflower seeds. It's like a bad habit from South Russian villages.
The bright lights of London have always been a magnet for foreign spies. During the Cold War, the capital city of one of Western Europe's wealthiest democracies held a particular fascination for secret agents from behind the Iron Curtain. But while the Cold War ended more than 25 years ago, it seems Russian spies couldn't kick their habit.
I think they've never stopped doing it, really, since the Cold War, and we all thought the Cold War was over. Unfortunately, I'm not sure the Russian intelligence did. And they are very active in trying to do all the things they've done before to influence our way of life.
Espionage isn't Russia's only interest in London. In recent years, London has earned an unenviable reputation as a money laundry, a place where dirty Russian rubles can be invested in property, whether by gangsters or corrupt politicians. The Labour MP Margaret Hodge says 85,000 properties in the UK, the majority in London, were bought for that purpose.
1 in 5 of those are properties bought by Russians. And at the moment, because we haven't got a public register of ownership, we don't know who owns those properties. What we do know is that there are swathes of London, 10% of Westminster, that is now owned by foreign companies.
At the Russian embassy, the spying operation has suffered one of its periodic setbacks. The government believes the 23 diplomats it's sending home were all spies.
And Simon will have more on that later on our monthly political programme, The Late Debate. He joins me now from Westminster.
Lucrezia, the nerve agent attack hasn't just thrown a spotlight on the activities of Russian spies in London, but has also led to new questions about Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. His apparent refusal to blame Russia yesterday has infuriated many of his own backbenchers. A number of Labour MPs from London signed a Commons motion unequivocally supporting the government. They include the Walthamstow MP Stella Creasy, who's one of my guests on The Late Debate.
But Jeremy himself has put out some very clear statements today saying he recognises it's the Russians. And I think, look, national security is the first role of all of us, not just the government, but all of us as MPs. And all of us have to make decisions on the evidence presented to us. Do I wish that the statement yesterday had been stronger? Yes. But do I think he's been clear that today he recognises that Russia is behind this and therefore it is right that we look at what action we can take, because we can't let this go.
As well as talking Russia's spies, we'll also look ahead to the local elections taking place here in London on May the 3rd and asking, are the Conservatives heading for a capital meltdown? I'll be joined by 3 prominent council leaders, Claire Cober, Nikki Aitken and Ruth Dombey. That's The Late Debate here on ITV at 11:15.
All right, Simon Harris, many thanks. Now, Labour's longest-serving mayor was ousted this afternoon in what many are calling a victory for Jeremy Corbyn's wing of the party. Sir Robin Wales has served the borough of Newham for 23 years, but today he was voted out in favour of Roxana Fiaz, who, if elected in May, will become the first black or ethnic minority woman in Europe to be directly elected as mayor. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Mayor Robin, I can't believe it, Mayor Roxana!
Her supporters couldn't contain their excitement, but Roxana Fiaz seemed stunned as the result came through. A councillor for just 1 term, she has ousted Newham's veteran leader and powerful directly elected mayor, Sir Robin Wales.
Right, OK, everyone, we've won!
I've been concerned about the way in which the council has become remote. It has a very top-down leadership structure, and I'm offering a different way of doing things where people are at the heart of everything that we do as a Labour Council if I am privileged enough to get the vote of Newham residents come May in the local elections.
But will also bring us the opportunity.
Robin Wales' involvement in London's Olympic bid made him one of the most high-profile politicians in local government. He was given a knighthood. But when Newham took a stake in the Olympic Stadium at a cost of £40 million, it led to growing criticism of his style of leadership.
Robin Wales has been leader or mayor of Newham for 23 years, a very long time, and has moulded the politics of the borough very much in his own image.
Sir Robin Wales is still mayor of Newham for another 7 weeks. But in May's borough elections, Councillor Fiaz will replace him as Labour's candidate. There was no sign of Sir Robin here today, but he did issue a statement. It said Roxana has made some ambitious promises that clearly Labour members supported, and I look forward to seeing Roxana face the bigger test of putting these ambitious targets to the residents of Newham.
I'm just so chuffed.
Roxana Fiaz goes into the mayoral election as the clear favourite. Labour holds 59 of the 60 council seats in Newham. And if she wins, she's promising a referendum on whether to abolish her job and return Newham to an old-style council with a leader instead of a mayor. Simon Harris, ITV News, Newham.